You. Yes, you. Don't I know you? If that is what you were thinking when you saw my face, then hey, welcome back to the show. And if you have no idea who I am, then my name is Colin, and this is the Product Uncensored show. This is the show where we talk about all things product with product people, focusing on Southeast Asia, and say it with me now, at least most of the time. Believe it or not, right? This is already episode 6. How time flies. If this is your first time, please feel free to check out our other episodes on YouTube. And if you're into podcasts, please find us on Anchor, Spotify, Google, and Apple, along with most other major podcast platforms. There will be a link in the description that will tell you all the available podcast platforms that we're available in. Also, if you haven't done this already, please subscribe, follow, and like so that you will know the very minute we actually release our new episodes. And finally, I have a question for you viewers and listeners. Where the ladies at? Do you know that both the video and podcast show analytics is telling me that there is a strong male audience viewership, and I'm wondering, why you females no like me? Am I not pretty enough for you? Okay, that was incredibly cringeworthy, but sometimes you gotta change things up. So on our special episode today, because every episode on this show is special, we are doing something different. Yes, again, we have a guest from Hong Kong on the show. And yes, I know that Hong Kong is technically not Southeast Asia, but it's in the vicinity. Okay, so cut me some slack. All right, but this is a very special guest, and I'm so excited to have him on the show. He's an entrepreneur, he's an amazing speaker, and he's also the director of product management at GOGOVAN, Vincent Chan. Welcome to the show, Vincent.
Hey, Colin, thanks for having me. It's my honor to join this show.
Yeah, and first off, I just want to thank him on behalf of all the listeners and viewers as well, because he's actually in the midst of doing, some really, really heavy lifting for some product work, and he took some time out just to be on this show. So thank you very much for that.
No problem.
Okay, so I wanted to start by actually asking you a question, actually. So what my first job, right, I worked in a bank. I worked for Standard Chartered, and I'm not sure whether you know, but Standard Chartered, one of the biggest markets for them is actually Hong Kong. And I noticed that everyone in Hong Kong that I spoke to, they all spoke with this very sing-song-like way of speaking English, and I'm just wondering whether that's still the case now. Like they would go like, Vincent, it's so nice to meet you," and it's always going up and
Yeah, I think that's just a Hong Kong style English.
but it's I really, it amused me for very long, and until today, even when I speak to people from Hong Kong, it amuses me. But that's the interesting part about you, though. You don't really have that accent, and I'm guessing that's also because you actually studied in the US, right?
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
Can you tell me a little bit about, well, this will be a good start, about how you went from Hong Kong to the US, and then we'll continue from there.
Sure, no problem. So I guess my story started in around almost 20 years ago already. So around 2002, 2003, when Hong Kong was still experiencing the SARS, the virus things. So I read a book called Build to Last. So it's a book about how to build lasting company, not just for some quick win. So I was inspired by it, and then I decided to pick the entrepreneurial path. But because at that time I was still in Hong Kong, that I think that if I really want to build a world-class lasting company, I need to learn something in the United States. And I think my family was fortunate enough to give me such an opportunity to study there. That's why I took the full advantage there, and then that's why I went there. I actually lived in Silicon Valley for 3 years before moving to Los Angeles. So if you look at my LinkedIn profile, it's true that I work at a bank after graduation, but that was not my plan. My plan was always start my own company, but at that time, since my sister was still in college, and then there were no so-called startup visa, so there was no clear way for me to stay there if I want to start my company immediately. That's why I got an offer at the bank and then stay there for 2 more years. But I think during that time, most of my time was spent on startup things. So I was very excited when I leave work so that I can go to do some free internship at some popular startup there. And then I also went to some university to join some startup community events so that I got some mentors there. So it prepared me well after I can move back to Hong Kong and start my own company. So banking was never my intention. So it was just a step towards my goal. Yeah.
Oh yeah. So basically the job at the bank helped you to pay the bills lah.
Yeah, and help me to stay in the US for a little bit longer.
Okay. So
Yeah.
I don't know. And one of the reasons why I'm like super excited to have you on the show is because honestly, while I may have spoken to a few Hong Kong people, I've never actually had an in-depth conversation about number one,
Uh-huh.
product management in Hong Kong, and number two, the culture in Hong Kong. So the
Sure.
culture here in Malaysia, right, and we always generalize it as this is the typical Asian parenting style. They seem, and this included my parents as well. They seem to
Yeah.
hold Western countries like Australia, Canada, US, Europe. That is like the gold standard for education, and
Yeah.
and usually for good measure, right? Sometimes
Mhm.
the parents and even your relatives will tell you, you go and study there lah, then you don't come back. You should stay there.
Yeah.
In your case, you actually studied at the very prestigious UCLA,
Uh-huh.
and then after that, you came back. Came
Mhm.
back as in you went back to Hong Kong. You were just
Yeah.
telling us about how after work you would try to go to meetups, entrepreneur meetups, get
Mhm.
internships at startups and
Mhm.
things like that.
Mhm.
Why didn't you decide to continue staying there rather than go back to Hong Kong? Was it because of the startup visa that wasn't available
Uh-huh.
then?
Yeah, I think staff visa was one of the factor, but I think a bigger factor is continue with my story of reading the book Built to Last.
Mm-hmm.
One story was about Sony, the Japanese company. It talked about around many years ago, made in Japan was actually not has the same meaning now.
Yes.
It's more like made in China. Now the quality was not that good. But the founder of Sony actually took that as a challenge and then tried to fly to US and then took a lot of the engineering equipment and then went back to Japan and then tried to transform it into a style that is even better than the US one. So that at the end, he built a brand or a company so big that it can represent or transform the impression of the whole country. I actually was quite inspired by that, and I actually hope that eventually, if I have a chance to start my own company, I really want to build a company that can represent this place, pretty much like Shopify can represent Canada, and Atlassian can represent Australia. But
Australia.
of course, since this kind of countries was not famous for startup or tech companies, it would be very challenging. But I guess that was always my dream. Of course, it didn't work as I expected, but that was my intention in the very first place. Yeah.
Okay, so you were hoping to sort of go back to Hong Kong, get involved in the startup scene, be an entrepreneur, and
Yeah.
basically, make something that would put
Yeah.
Hong Kong on the world map as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, very, very noble, very noble. So you actually did that. So you went back to Hong Kong and then you became the founder and CEO of, am I pronouncing this correctly? Primitus.
Primitus. Yeah.
Primitus.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So tell us a little bit about Primitus.
Okay, so I came back around 2008, right after the Lehman Brothers things.
Collapse.
So the market was extremely bad, and then
Oh, yes.
I tried to raise a small round of money from some angel investor from the financial world, which is kind of my friends that I knew for a long time, so that I have some small amount of angel funding to start my own company. So and then I joined some incubator program in Hong Kong, but this is very extremely different from the Y company one. The Hong Kong one only offer you an office, so that you don't have to pay rent. So and then I met my co-founders and built a small team up to around 7 to 8 people. And then in that period, we built a SaaS product, which is in the human resources recruiting space. We actually got some award from Singapore Startup Conference as well. But I guess, as you may know, SaaS is a really tough business model in the early days because the subscription fee is very low. You need to have a certain size in order to make it sustainable. So because of our funding was not really that big and the startup community was extremely immature 12 years ago, there were simply no VC in Hong Kong at that time, or even when they were here, they only look at opportunity outside of Hong Kong. They just live in Hong Kong because of the living standard that they like. But usually they would just fly back to China or other Southeast Asia countries during the work weekday. So at that time, my co-founder and I was in a dilemma that whether we gave up or just keep building the product. So at the end, we decided to self-fund it by doing some consulting project. So 50% of our staff work on consulting work, 50% of our staff work on internal product. So I guess it was a very good experience, even though we work like hell. I slept at 3 a.m. almost every day. But at that time, I was able to wear multiple hats. Basically, everything non-engineering were done by me, including marketing, design, front-end coding, fundraising, and sales. So during that 3 years, I was able to grow very, very fast, much faster than the time I spent at bank doing some boring work. So, but at the end of that, those 3 years, I just talked to my co-founder, saying that was this something that we really intended to do in the first place by doing those boring consulting jobs to sustain the company? And then our answer was no. That's why I decided to shut the company down and then try to go to others winning startups to learn from them, so that if I have a chance to do it again in the futures, I will be much more well prepared for that. Yeah.
Okay.
So that's pretty much it. Yeah.
And if I were to take a guess, I would imagine that the Primitus website, the About Us, was probably written by you.
Yes.
Yeah, because you were talking about the principles from Steve Blank and Eric Ries, and like, wow, this is incredibly very product centered already, even for a startup. Sorry, can we go back a little bit to again? What was the book that influenced you? You said was Built to Last. And then you talked about the customer, the one that was by Steve Blank, and then the startup, the startup book by Eric Ries as well, right?
Yes, yeah.
Where did you? Yeah, sorry, the Lean Startup. Where did you get the? Where did you find these books immediately? Because, so I'll give you an example, right? So like for myself, right, I didn't hear about Lean or Agile until like 2010, and by that time I probably spent more than 5 years in the bank. I'd done my own thing, my own startup, sort of a startup for 2 years plus. So how did you hear about these authors in the first place?
Sure. I guess the source was always from that Built to Last book. So after I read the book, I got it curious me about, it basically opened my eye up to the whole new world. And then after, whenever I read something that I didn't understand in the book, I would just keep Googling it. And then at the end, when I had the chance to go to Silicon Valley, whenever I read something on the book like Steve Blank or other stuff, I would basically try to meet them in person. I actually met Steve Blank and took a picture with him. And then I think I have a habit to try to learn from the source, the best source that I could reach. So when I lived in Silicon Valley for 7 years, I think I took full advantage on that one, so that even though I may not be able to build lasting relationship with most of those mentors, but by having some conversation with some of the world-class entrepreneurs there, it basically make me think that anything is possible. Because when you I was living in Hong Kong when I read the book. Those people are so far away. They're like celebrities that I could never talk to them. They're like crazy superheroes. But I guess when I had a chance to live there, and then I had a chance to have breakfast or coffee with them face to face, it actually made me think that, oh, it seems like it's possible even for me to do something like that. Yeah, I think that was quite important. Yeah.
Did you, like when you said you managed to meet Steve Blank, right? How did you meet him? Did you like go and cold email him and ask him, hey, would you like to have breakfast?
Steve Blank is, I tried to talk with him after a seminar or event that he was a speaker. But for some other mentor, like one CEO from a public company, I actually wrote cold email to him for 7 years, pretending to, I'm a reporter that I want to do an interview with him. In fact, I was just a student, and then his assistant kept rejecting me. And then until 7 years later, when he actually sold his company, and then he took the time to check the email and find out this guy keep sending email for him for 7 years straight. And then at that time he said, oh, maybe we should have a breakfast together, so that he had talk to me. Yeah.
Wow, that is so amazing. Yeah, so I think, you know, just from that part of the story alone, I think one of the things that is very underrated is just sheer persistence, right? When you want something, even if you don't have the means at that time, you know, you got to try different ways. So wow, that's I'm just so mind blown. 7 years persistence. Okay, fantastic.
That was my favorite entrepreneur. Yeah.
Okay. So then the interesting question becomes, so you know, you talked about Primitus, and you're saying that, you know, you guys didn't set out to be a consulting company, and in the end, you know, that was what was sustaining the company, and that's not the goal. You said to shut it down. Then you moved to OneSky.
Yes.
When you were moving to OneSky, you went in as a product manager, right? Yeah. Were you already targeting the product management role, or how did that job come about?
Yeah, I think at that time I was still not very sure what product management is, but I guess everyone read about product managers is like a mini CEO of the product. So I guess, okay, I was the CEO of my own company for a while. Maybe I was suitable for this job. So that I just proposed, because the founder of OneSky was actually my friend in the startup community. So he know I could do product and product design stuff. So he gave me a chance to practice my work there. Yeah.
Okay.
So
all right.
I think it's by accident. Yeah.
So you actually proposed that, you know, you be the product manager for their company.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. And by the time you left, how many product managers were there at OneSky?
I think when I joined, it was still very, very small. The whole company only have around 12 people. I was the only, I was their first and only PM, because previously it was just done by the founder, like many other startups. But after when I left, we have around 4 to 5 PM. The team actually grew very fast within those 3 years. Yeah.
Yep, fantastic. And of course, the question is then, how did you grow the product management team from a team of one, where you were the first person, not only the first person, right? This was also your first product job. And then how did you build it to be a team of 5 by the time you left?
Okay, so I guess it was mainly driven by all the demand from the customer, because at one point that there's so many feature requests and bug reporting that I couldn't really handle it by myself. And then at the same time, the company had some new initiative to tackle new areas that probably required standalone time and attention to pay on that one. So it was actually organically evolved. It was not really like I want to have a 10 p.m. team, then so that I go hire 10 p.m. So I guess it was basically based on the demand, so that whenever we have some new initiative that, for example, because OneSky not only was a SaaS product, it also is a marketplace to connect between a translator and software engineer. So when we in the very beginning, I took care of both sides. So, but when the company grew to a certain stage, we thought, oh, maybe we should have a standalone PM to handle the demand side, one PM handle the supply side, and that was how we organically evolved the team. So, so that was pretty much it. Yeah.
And by the time you left, you were leading the product team. Is that right?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. So what were what were some of the teething problems that you faced when you were trying to build the team, and then when you became, that is the point where from one removed, you are now suddenly two removed from the product, right? Because now you are managing the product management team.
Yeah. I guess when I first joined OneSky, like I mentioned, it was a very small team, and we had some traction, but I would say it's like a weak product market fit. So at that time, the product manager's role actually cover many things. I actually help work on some marketing stuff as well, and design work. So that in a way, I still work kind of like an entrepreneur. So that whenever areas that I think I could contribute, and I will help work on it. But of course, the product side, it was the main focus. And then when the team got bigger and bigger, it's true that I will be a little bit more far away. But I guess the main growing pain at that point was when you only had one PM, one designer, and a few engineers, you don't really talk about process or structure at all. You just behind and then just check to the person next to you, right? So it was quite easy, and we didn't really have that many documentation kind of stuff. I believe we were still using Google Doc. We didn't even use a project management tool in the beginning. But then later on, because of the team getting bigger, the customer base got bigger. We gradually moved to Basecamp and then eventually Jira and stuff like that. So because when we try to scale up the team, you will find that the communication, the collaboration got into a lot of issue. Because when you got the early team member who helped you to get the first product market fit, they actually earned the trust with the founder, senior management, right? It was quite hard for them to hand off to you guys and other team members to do the stuff that they were originally doing. So it was that transition period to do things more systematically and try to evolve the culture. I would say that was the most challenging part. Teaching junior team members to do product work was it's not easy, but it's kind of trivial in a way, because there's so many best practices outside. But the people dynamic, how to transform the company from one stage to another stage, from a culture point of view, from a process point of view, I think personally, I think that was the most challenging. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And that theme would come back to you again when you went to GOGOVAN, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so wait, I'm sort of teasing for that now. Well, actually, what I wanted to ask you was, when you decided to move from OneSky to GOGOVAN, was it because what was the reason for you moving to GOGOVAN? Yeah, you should ask it as a question.
So when I joined OneSky, one factor that I really like a lot is it was winning. And then my own startup was failing. So that I hope I can learn something inside. And then I conclude in my startup that two major factors that caused our failure was product and also marketing. Basically the go-to-market things. So in OneSky, I got the chance to do a lot of growth hacking stuff, content marketing, SEO. Basically, I think I was okay prepared at that level of the startup. And then after I spent almost 4 years there, I thought that my marketing skill was okay enough at that stage. But what if eventually, if I really can fulfill my dream, I need to be able to contribute in a much bigger level, like unicorn or after IPO, those kind of stuff. So that's why I try to find another opportunity that can provide me a platform to solve that kind of scale in terms of different, the same problem in different scale is totally different. So that, and then one more bonus was that GOGOVAN kind of representing Hong Kong already. So in a way, it's my dream. The founders are living my dream. So I also had a friend working here at that time. All the problem that he shared with me, I felt that I had the experience and capability to solve it, or had the chance to figure it out for them. So that's why making the opportunity even more attracting to me. And then after I checked with all those founders, I think that it was a perfect fit for me to continue my journey in the next stage. Yeah.
Okay. Did you know the founders of GOGOVAN? Because they were apparently students in California as well.
Yeah, actually, no. They were already like a celebrities in Hong Kong, but I think some of our years actually overlap in the States, but I never met them.
Okay. So it wasn't because you already knew them that there was some connection there.
No.
Okay.
One of them actually went to the same university as well.
Oh, wow.
I never met him. Yeah.
Okay. He wasn't a celebrity back then. Okay. So yeah. So one of the things that you actually shared at the PMF APAC, and I think you've also written about this in Medium, was about transforming product culture at GOGOVAN. From what you're saying about how you ended up in GOGOVAN, it sounds like you already knew that was the problem even when you went in.
Yeah. So like I mentioned, before I joined this company, I had a chance to talk with my friends who was working here at that time. All the problem and challenge that he mentioned to me was exactly the things that I was experiencing at OneSky, but it's in a different scale. So at OneSky, I already had a chance to solve part of the problem. It was not totally solved before I left, but at least I had a chance to be aware of what could be the potential root cause of some of the issue from a process or cultural perspective. And that's why when I heard about the problem happening at GOGOVAN around 3 years ago, I talked to the CEO and some of the senior management team there. I find that the problem they were facing was exactly the same as what I was facing at OneSky. That's why I proposed some of the potential solution to them, so that they gave me a chance to come here to fix the stuff that they were facing at that time.
Okay. And when you joined, you were in charge of the product team and QA as well, right? If I'm not mistaken.
Product design, QA, yeah.
Okay. So when you came in, were you like expected to be like Mr. Fixit, like, okay, this is Vincent and he's going to fix our problems?
I think the CEO made an announcement in the town hall that this guy was coming in to fix all the shitty things that the whole company were, because at that point they were in a very interesting stage that the company business-wise was going very, very fast. But at the same time, they also had a big challenge on the product and engineering side, because it's all those growing pains that I mentioned to you earlier. They just was in a different stage and different scale. So that's why they were hoping to find someone externally to come in to fix it. So in a way, after he made that announcement, there was good and bad. Good is people knew what I'm coming in for. The bad is people will kind of feel scared of me because they actually didn't know what to expect from a new guy, and then they were not a small company anymore at that time. So there's some crazy moment. Yeah.
Okay. At that time, GOGOVAN, were they only still in Hong Kong, or had they already expanded to multiple markets?
Yeah, they were already in 5 markets. Yeah.
Okay. So they. And how big was the product team under you?
The whole, including QA and designers. I think at that time when I joined, only 15 or 12 or 15. Yeah.
Okay. All right.
Not too big.
Yeah, but it was also across multiple disciplines within the product development cycle, right? So I'm going to ask you about, what did you do? But before that, right, one of the things that I actually wanted to ask you was, because you studied at UCLA, your way of thinking and your influences have been like foremost or what's the, sorry, I'm losing the word, some of the foremost thinkers of their time within product, like like Eric Ries, or rather in the entrepreneurial space, sorry.
Yeah. Yeah.
How much do you think that actually influenced the way you sort of went about fixing things in GoGoVan? Do you think that played a part?
Yeah, it played a big part because is because, like you mentioned, all of our founders were from Silicon Valley as well. Even though they grew up in Hong Kong, they all went to the States for college. So in a way, it was quite easy for me to communicate with them, because whenever I reference some of the material that I read, or it's easy because they know what that's about. And then also, like, this whole growing pains things, at least in Hong Kong, I know many friends and startup experience the same issue. But in a way, it's not unique to Hong Kong, right?
Yeah.
It happened multiple times in the history, even within Silicon Valley. So in a way, as long as you can analyze the problem correctly, all the answer on how to solve those problems are actually on the internet. I actually keep after I dig out all the issue here, I try to find different kind of solution. But at the end, I just search most of the problem in Harvard Business Review, and also the blog of Martin Cragen,
Martin
the
Kagan, yep.
svpg.com.
Mm-hmm.
Basically, these two websites provide me all the insights on how to solve the problem here at that scale at that time. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Okay, and I suppose so. What I would like to ask following that as well is, so again, just this cultural, trying to check on the cultural similarities, right? So in Malaysia, right, we have this thing where we always say that, if it's an Asian company, right, it's gonna be like this very, very money first mentality, very stingy, squeeze the employees for every drop until they die because you're paying them, kind of thing. But it sounds like you didn't have that challenge because, number one, the founders were already people who studied in the States. And like you said, they were sort of influenced within the same sphere already. Did you face that kind of a challenge with, maybe a few people or a few departments within GoGoVan that you needed to really sort of change the way they thought about work and about, being a committed part of the team?
Yeah, I think for typical Hong Kong company, they do have the problem that you mentioned. But I think for GoGoVan, the reason I picked this company when I interviewed was because I find that there's a mutual fit in terms of culture, that I can collaborate well with at least the senior management team. Because for some other department and middle managers, of course, there won't be perfect fit in terms of cultures. If not, that the whole company won't got into that kind of issue. But I think for those who may have old school thinking, I took the time to communicate with them, especially during one-on-one, so that I can gradually prepare them for the potential changes that I was going to bring in at that time. So I would say, because of the key stakeholder already was kind of desperate, I would say, so that they try many things before I joined, to be honest, but seems not many things work out as they expected. So that's why at that time it was kind of perfect timing to try something new. From this guy who claimed he knows what he's doing.
From someone but okay, so that's the interesting question as well, because you said they tried things before, and you were just saying that before that, right, basically all the problems that you find is they're not unique in that sense. Most companies trying to scale will have the same problems. So what do you think was the difference between you doing what you did in the implementation side versus everything else that failed previously?
I think first of all, it's about trust. When I joined the company at that time, there was already a big trust issue between department and between team members and senior management. mostly on the tech side. The business side was kind of okay, but the tech side, there was no trust at all, because whenever one side says something, the other side will second guess the intention. It was definitely not healthy. So at that time, but the same group of people actually helped the company to get the product market fit and early stage growth as well. But one side decided not to grow as far as the business side, because if the team get bigger, like we just discussed, right, you may not be able to do the same thing that you did in the beginning. But not everyone was interested in solving those kind of problems. You need to do more leadership things, more management stuff, more structure, more process. It's not always the cup of tea for most tech people, I would say.
Was it,
Especially,
sorry, wanted to ask, to interrupt. Was it
yeah.
because like some of them didn't want to sort of leave the startup, because like when you do startup, everybody's very close, everybody's very, communication is easy.
Yeah.
And when you start
Yeah.
scaling, right, obviously, like you said, more processes involved, more things to do, and suddenly you realize that I'm more removed from the company. Was that one of the
I think
challenges?
that was definitely one of the factors. Yeah, but I guess people just tend to not like change, right? If you don't really have the leader that can do a good storytelling to tell them why they should change, they will just think that you are disturbing me. I don't want to leave my status quo, stuff like that. But if you have the right leader to do the right communication, I found that even those we can basically change people's mindset if they think they know truly understand why those change can benefit themselves as well. Then I didn't really have that much challenge doing that kind of change. Yeah.
So was that most of what you were doing, sort of like trying to do the storytelling of why things needed to change, how it was affecting the company?
Yeah, I think, to summarize, it is like that. But I think in the very beginning, I actually start with listening first, because I was the new guy. Why? I really hate to do something top down. I'm not really a dictatorship kind of person. So I just try to came in pretending that I didn't really know how to solve this kind of problem. I have no knowledge at all. I want to open my up to listen to all the perspective first, because even at that point, I was only able to listen to my friend and some of the senior management team. Their side of story may not be everything.
Yeah.
So I try to get enough information from all the key stakeholder and team members first. And then I, based on those signals, I try to adjust some of the plan that I already planned out before I joined the company, so that I make sure that, okay, I actually give them a preview of some of the changes. How do you think about this if we change this and that? And to make sure that eventually when I make a proper public announcement of those change plan, most people will feel comfortable about it. And even for those who didn't feel comfortable, they won't at least feel surprised. So that I try my best to address their feeling first before I did a public announcement on some of the changes. But of course, for the team members who were the closest to me, especially the product managers, I actually gave them, I usually was more tough on them, because I have a high standard on product managers. I told them that, okay, this will be the direction this company is going to move towards in terms of product management. You either like it or not. If you significantly disagree about this direction, I would suggest you to leave, because if the gap was too big, there's no way that I can change your preference. But if you are open up to become a world-class product manager and open up for me to coach you, mentor you, then I'm willing to spend as much time as I can to help you to move to the next stage. So I guess I actually treat the product management team a little bit differently versus the whole tech organization. Yeah.
Right. And would you, how would I ask this question? Was there many people who left? Like, what was there a significant people cost to the change, or was it okay?
I think for product team, no one left until now, because while before I joined, some team members may think that product team was the root cause of a lot of the problem, or they may even think that the product team's people's quality was bad. But after I joined, I actually find out that with the right leadership and with the right coaching and development plan, they actually can do a lot better than people expected. Actually, how those team members transform in these past 3 years actually surprised a lot of internal team members. So that I would say that before I make a judgment, I would try to make sure that I truly understand what is the current situation, and then I will always give them a second chance before I really saw you do something shitty. So I guess that was my approach. But I think on the other side, on the engineering team, actually I think 50 to 60% of people left. But in a way, mainly because not necessarily all of them were bad, but they joined the company because of certain culture. But when I came in, I said I need to do all the things properly, doing Agile, Scrum, Jira, because they didn't really have any of that before I joined. So people hate those process structures, so that gradually some people left. But I would say that in a way, we also find some a new generation of our engineers who buy into this kind of culture, so that it made our collaboration much more smooth. Yeah. So I would say that now the team is 2x or 3x bigger than I joined. But I would say that for the one who like the culture that I brought in, most of them stay and still very happy working here.
Congratulations on that, because I think that's really the kind of success story that people really want to hear, right? You start out to do something and you did it. When you embarked on this I don't know, transforming of product culture in that sense, were the founders and senior management aware that there's going to be a people cost to this, in terms of like what you said, right? People who don't buy into it, people who just don't want to change, are simply going to go and leave?
Yeah, they definitely did, because in a way, when I actually pulled the trigger to do, because I think for the first month it was like a honeymoon period for me, but after 1 month I tried to present my plan on what kind of things that I saw was extremely wrong, and then what kind of direction that I'm going to bring this company forward in the next 6 to 12 months. So, and then at that time, I tried to set the expectation right, telling them what could be the worst case, like you mentioned, maybe many people left, but what it would be the best case as well, like the people actually adopt the new culture, so that we can have more product innovation going forward. I guess normally I try to scare people first. So if they are okay with that, then they shouldn't feel any surprise, no matter what happens next.
Okay, under promise and over deliver, yeah?
Yeah.
Okay. Oh gosh, I just said that I totally lost. Oh yes, the question I wanted to continue is, what was the first win that you think you put on the board when you started this transformation? Like what was the plan that you wanted to really show that things were improving?
Yeah. So in terms of change management, is a big topic. Probably one expert show cannot finish it. But for me, many people think that change management will fail because they put too much focus in the end goal. So like just keep fit. You really want to lose weight, but actually it took forever. So I actually focus on the habits, the daily habits that these people were doing at that time. So that I start from the individual habits, the team habits, so that I gradually change the process and culture from there. So that I want to make sure, you should actually talk to customer more frequently. You should pretend to be drivers to drive our vehicle outside, not just sitting in the office. Or some of those people should go to our call center to take call with from customers. And then even for engineers, I hope that I force some of them to talk with customer directly. And then on the other hand, in terms of stakeholder management, how to do the agile process more properly, I try to introduce those kind of things gradually, weekly or on a weekly basis. So that I would say the first small win internally will be able to adopt the new process. Because before I joined, they actually did deployment very infrequently. Like sometimes they could do quarterly deployment.
Wow.
But after 1 or 2 months, I think after 1.5 months, we successfully transformed to do bi-weekly release at least, so that it was already a big change. The reason that they did quarterly deployment was because they really scared of what could happen after the deployment. It was like a bomb that can went crazy. But I just told them how to manage the risk and control it properly, so that they didn't have to be afraid of it. And then that was a big win for me. And then after that, externally, we actually had the chance to revamp our driver app. Our driver app is very similar to the Uber's one that our van driver has to use it. So we took the first 5 to 6 months to ship the first revamped driver app using all the new process, all the new project management framework and tool. So in that way, when the team, all the office around the world, they saw the product quality and how we structure the communication during the whole development cycle, so that people know the latest progress, how we can ship things on time, how we do the proper product marketing, messaging, and do the announcement. People actually, after that, people felt much more comfortable of this new direction, and they gave me even more autonomy to do the things that I needed to do. So I think the internally and externally, we have 2 separate small wins. Yeah.
Okay. So the interesting question is, because I've gone through a similar experience as you, and also had questions. So this is the question that I'm literally transferring over to you to get somebody else's view. So a lot of the things that you mentioned, right? Let's say, for example, going from quarterly to bi-weekly to a more frequent cadence of deploying. Those are technically engineering practices, right? So the question would be, why would a product manager get his fingers involved with engineering practices?
I guess when I did the whole transformation, like I mentioned in the beginning, when I did the listening part, I actually talked to every single engineer as well, so that in a way they understood that I'm not a typical product manager that who didn't know anything about engineering, so that they kind of gave me a little bit respect. So that, and then I also try to build a good relationship with the head of engineering at that time, so that I told them, okay, we win and lose as a team. It's not like I can dictate anything from my side, but if you also agree this kind of problem and this kind of new direction that we should go, then we should work together, so that at the end, we got the buy-in from the head of engineering and all the tactics, so that it makes things much more easier in that way.
Okay, fantastic. So for those of you who have ever asked me this question before, this is Vincent actually giving his answer. And again, I think that's the interesting part about product management as well. Technically, we are a discipline on its own, but in fact, a lot of things that we want to affect change, or improve tends to touch other processes, other people, which is like what you said, right? That's why there's a lot of need to learn stakeholder management, and learn about communication, and learning about knowing when to be tough. Like saying, like what you said, be tough with the product team. This is the way it's going to be from now on. And if you can't handle it, maybe it's just not the right place for you. And at the same time, being empathetic towards those who fear the change because they've never done it before. So that's, thank you so much for sharing about that. Those are, one of the interesting things I wanted to ask you as well is, in this case, QA in GOGOVAN, QA falls under product, which is not very common. Most QA functions fall under engineering or the techs. How come?
There's no specific reason. It was already like that when I joined, so I just didn't take the time to change it. But I think one special thing about our QA team is they actually help out on part of the Scrum Master role as well. So they handle some of the project management part with like release management, stuff like that. So that it make a little bit more sense to work inside product team. But yeah, totally agree. Because we still haven't fully adopt QA automation yet. So in a way, the QA engineering part, the actual automation part will be still done by engineering team. But just the QA, the manual QA, and the one who do the Scrum Master function will be on my team as well.
Okay, all right. So it's just that it was legacy, and then when you join, and therefore you just continue.
I didn't just think, because I asked them whether you want to join the engineering team or pro team, then they decided to stay. Then I just went with it. Yeah.
Well, that's great, right? I mean, because that shows that they trust you, and they obviously want to work under you. So that shows that you're a good leader too.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the next question that I wanted to ask you then is, you've achieved so much at GOGOVAN, right? I mean, to really be able to come out and say, I joined and I've really helped to transform the product culture. And like the title of your topic was product transformation of product at scale. So do you feel like, this from here on out is going to be your life's mission, to be, a product specializing in transformation? Or do you still harbor dreams about, the entrepreneurial part of you that kick-started you on this journey?
Yeah, I think eventually I definitely will go back to the entrepreneurship route again. But I have two kids now. One is 4 years old. One is 2 years old. Definitely not the right time to do this again. But I think even within the product management domain, I won't say that I have already achieved a lot, because like the cultural transformation things is a never-ending things. Even I claim that in my article that I have fixed majority of the issue that this company faced 3 years ago. Now we already have another different group of problem that we need to solve for this particular stage of the company. So I in terms of this kind of change management, I think one key part is never try to declare victory too soon, so that people will feel comfortable that, oh, I can stay in this new status quo now. I would rather everyone be more cautious about, okay, whether this current process and current structure is suitable for our stage right now. If not, please speak out so that we can evolve the team together. I think this will be the challenging and also the most interesting part, that we never stay in one status quo, and we always aim for as a team to try to find the best way for this company to work together. Because at the end of the day, if you work at a startup and you don't feel happy about it, and you didn't really have a chance to make changes and help this company to scale to the next level, then why I don't join a bank instead?
Yes, unfortunately the banks are really getting whacked on this show today. So if I were to ask you, 3 years ago, you said you managed to transform the product culture at scale. What would be your biggest joy? If anybody would ask you, this was your baby, right? And it was successful to a certain extent. What would be your biggest proud moment, like a proud dad in that sense?
Yeah, I think the biggest proud moment will be seeing those team members grow and prove people wrong about their perception to the same group of people. Because I think after these 3 years, I really think the judgment to those people were very unfair. I think that with the right environment and right resources and right mentorship, I think many people actually can do bigger and more difficult things. So that I think if you really talk about win or success after these 3 years, I really think that the fact that I was able to grow those people to a different level, it was my greatest joy. I actually think it's even more than helping the company to grow, actually.
Yeah.
Because I treat them like a friend, right? If like next year, if Google or Grab came in to steal them, I actually very happy. I will actually celebrate together with them.
True, true. Although don't say it too loud. Yeah, some GOGOVAN people might be listening. So
Yeah.
yeah, but I think it's true that to a certain extent what we do in product management, again, just coming back to the discipline,
Yeah.
it's not just about the process, right? It's a lot about the people as
Yeah.
well. Yeah, I remember telling one of at that time in my company, I was telling one of my staff who said, he wanted to leave. He was so apologetic. It was like, look, there
Yeah.
are going
Yeah.
to be opportunities, and if you're going for a better opportunity, I would be super happy. What would
Yeah.
make me super sad is if you are leaving because you don't like me or because I'm not good enough. Now that will make me very sad, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, because
yeah,
I think in a way, when you become a senior level of product managers, you no longer had the chance to touch the product directly, very rarely. So in a way, all those product managers are my product. So
yes.
that if I can grow this product, I will be very happy. Just like how I grow my own product in the past. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And that is another interesting point. I'm sorry, I was actually meaning to go to another question, but what you said, right, is very interesting because
Yeah.
this was exactly what someone else said. I can't remember whether it was on the show or whether it was on a panel, and that person was saying, once you become more removed from the product, the
Yeah.
people that you manage are basically your product. But that is
Yes.
also a double-edged sword, right? Because for example, right, let me give you an example.
Yeah.
When you go for interviews that for a product leadership role, and again, I
Yes.
don't know whether this is just confined to Malaysia or whether
Mhm.
it's
Mhm.
common to everyone. They
Yeah.
will always ask you about what is your biggest achievement and things like that. And when you talk about the people side of things, then they ask you what about the product. And I find that to be
Yeah.
always quite strange because again,
Yeah.
once you're one removed or two removed from the product,
Yeah.
you're no, the success of the product is as a whole, which is basically did the company do well. And of course, if
Mhm.
the company
Mhm.
didn't do
Mhm.
well, then obviously
Mhm.
something is wrong. So yeah, it feels like when you're in product leadership, there's this double-edged sword. The people are your
Yeah.
product,
Yeah.
but you still have to worry about the actual product.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I think my philosophy is I always measure the performance of a manager based on the output of those team members. So if I am in an interview like that, I will just explain to them that it's true that I may not be the one who touched the end product directly on a daily basis, but at the end, how I coach this PM, how I do one-on-one, how I structure the process, road mapping, how to discuss with them on strategy, how to influence their product decision. I think those kind of things should be able to help a company to get more impact. And if this particular company care about scalability, they should know that these kind of things will help this team, this company to grow even bigger down the road because
Mhm.
you are not trying to hire individual contributor, right? Because
Yeah,
if I can do it like manage things based on objective rather than just micromanaging, I can manage even bigger
more.
team.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Agree. All right. So last question on this topic before we move on. Then the question I was originally going to ask is: so if someone, and this could be a product leader, someone in a product leadership position, or it could be
Mhm.
someone who is a product manager, who finds that the role that they're in requires things to change.
Yeah,
What will be your advice to them? Like, let's say, for example, let's say I'm an individual contributor. I join a
yeah,
product team,
yeah, yeah.
and I realize that things need to change,
Yes.
and I don't know how to go about doing it. How would
Yeah.
you how would you advise me as someone who has done it? Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I think I also got this question quite often because in terms of change management, it's true that it's harder to do it from a bottom-up approach
Hmm.
because the way I did it was still kind of like a
Top
top-down.
down.
Yeah, but I just took more time to get more feedback in my top-down approach. But for the people who are maybe in a more junior position, I would say that first, you cannot give up. And then you try to gather your tribe by finding other people with a similar mindset within the company. It could be your team member, it can be someone from another team or someone from the senior management team, stuff like that. So, and then you try to gather this so-called early adopter so that you guys can gather together and then brainstorm how we should do the communication and convince the CEO or the senior management team that why and when we should do this transformation and what is the potential consequence. Because at the end, if this group of people, no matter how junior they are, if they can create a sense of urgency with some key influencer within the company, they will gradually help you to do the pitching as well. Because of course, you need to do something to scare them, right? You just put something in spreadsheet. Oh, the productivity is lower and lower, and then we are doing quarterly deployment now, stuff like that. So that you, because in a way you need to be like a translator. You need to talk in a way that the other side can understand, even though sometimes when you both are speaking in English, but different domains speak different kind of language. I'm sure you understand. So that you need to communicate in a way that the other side understand, so that he will be able to join your tribe to do the pitching together. I think this is the way that I will do if I am a junior team member again. But of course, it's very, very tough because many people will give up because it's so tough and it's a very lonely journey. But I would say that if this change is really, really important to you, if you want to be a good product manager down the road, you need to do it no matter what. And that's why the whole outcome-driven things that the PM should be. I think it's a testing to see whether you have this kind of mindset.
Mm-hmm. Okay, fantastic. Thank you so much. So now we go to the last part, which is the song that I wanted you to recommend to listeners. And you know, with the whole feel, an approach of the conversation, I think I can already predict why, but I'm still going to ask you anyway. So you chose the song "Change" by Taylor Swift. So first of all, my first question before I ask you to explain a bit more, did you choose it because of the song or because you are actually a Taylor Swift fan?
I chose it because you said you don't have enough female audience. Just kidding. No, I think a lot of my songs, to be honest, is in Chinese. But I particularly pick. I also like Taylor Swift, but I'm not like those big fans. But I think this song helped me to go through a very difficult period when I have a very tough time when I was building my own startup. Mm-hmm. I think if you look at the lyrics, you should feel that it kind of like an entrepreneurship kind of journey that you need to beat the bigger guy with limited resources, and you need to keep your head up and keep trying. At the end, hopefully you will win, like the song said. But I guess I think the song was actually for Olympic a few years ago. Actually definitely not about what I said, but I think it actually can apply to that kind of angle.
Okay, so the question also, since you do listen to Taylor Swift, whether you're a big fan or not is a different story. So should Taylor Swift fans be known as Swifties, or are they Taylors or Tay? What?
I have no opinion. I don't even know what that means.
Because
I saw some people write about that online, but I don't really care.
Okay. So as usual, the link is probably up there somewhere when we started the topic, and also at the end of the show there will be a link there to the song. So do listen to it, especially if you are a product manager who's trying to implement change, or if you're an entrepreneur who's trying to fight. Yes, Taylor Swift's "Change" as recommended by Vincent. So I think that's it for today. I want to thank you so much, Vincent, for taking the time to be on the show. As I mentioned earlier, I really am thankful that you took the time, even though GOGOVAN is like really planning some big stuff. So really thank you for that. And hopefully the next time I get you on the show, you can tell us about all these super big plans, all these shrouded in secrecy stuff.
Sure. Thanks so much for having me again.
All right. So ladies and gentlemen, that was Vincent Chan, the Director of Product Management at GOGOVAN, and he joined the show all the way from Hong Kong. For all our viewers and listeners, thank you again for all your support so far. If you have questions that you wanted to ask, feel free to put it in the comments, or if you want to, suggest, give some feedback, suggest anything, you can also feel free to email me at productuncensored@gmail.com. If you enjoyed today's show on YouTube, as usual, please like, subscribe, or if you are listening to the podcast, follow and download. And if you want to know more about Product Uncensored, please visit our website at www.productuncensored.com. So until our next episode, please stay safe, keep rocking, and don't be afraid of change. See you and bye-bye.